Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Alyeska Pipeline Service Company, Alaska's pipeline to the future, delivering oil today, sustaining operations for tomorrow, committed to safety, operating the 800-mile Trans-Alaska Pipeline since 1977.
The National Weather Service.
Welcome to Sunday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On yesterday's satellite imagery, we were watching frontal boundary right up through here, trailing back down toward Nunivak Island. Most of the push off to the east, a little bit slower movement here to the east-southeast, but yesterday afternoon that did get in far enough to kick the snow off at McGrath and areas back to the southwest with a narrow band up to the north. Otherwise, a lot of rain moving into the southeast coast associated with this cloud mass here. Moving through mostly yesterday afternoon, last evening. Still some rain going on, but another system developing down to the south, poised to move more precipitation this afternoon back in over the southern areas. A lot of rain now going on again over the southern southeast coast with more showery condition up to the north, now extended back along the North Gulf Coast. And then this system to the west and northwest, having slid eastward, light snow, fell the entire day at Fairbanks and areas on down and along to the west of the Alaska Range, mostly along the slopes there. But McGrath did pick up a couple inches of snow, about 1,500 water equivalent in the last 24 hours. Talkeetna picked up about 2/10 of an inch, most of which fell as snow this morning before it changed over to rain and ended during the afternoon hours. You can see the clear area here over Cook Inlet. A lot of sunshine. The Anchorage area, southeast winds blowing out of the arm that shut off any threat of precipitation in that area today, with another clear area back out here to the west with the colder temperatures. Bristol Bay, not too bad here. There was some snow reported around King Salmon, rain and snow at Iliamna, and then back along this frontal boundary. But the clear and cold temperatures up here over the north slope. There was some patchy low clouds and isolated areas of IFR due to fog like New Wixit. They're down to a mile in fog this afternoon. Otherwise, a lot of clear skies up there and temperatures well below zero, coming up from lows around 30 below in some areas, but remaining below zero up in that location. And again, the wind's picking up a little bit here with that system as it pushes northeastward here, but mostly a rain producer. Could see some possible gale force winds, especially with this next center coming northward, and it looks like both centers will more or less combine and lift up toward Yakutat tomorrow afternoon. At the same time, this front will continue to edge its way eastward and look for a few more clouds tomorrow. Could see some more light snow in the northern valleys here, but it doesn't look like anything will get down towards, say, Wasilla, Anchorage, Palmer, or anywhere south until possibly late tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, but the timing pretty difficult there. And then the snow up to the northeast and clear temperatures, or clear skies with colder temperatures out here to the west, and northerly winds. Not all that brisk out here over the Bering Sea or the Pribilof. Few isolated snow showers out there, and that dropping down into the eastern Aleutians with just a trace of precipitation in the last 24 hours at Unalaska, only 1/100th of an inch at Cold Bay. So this stuff really light, and a weakening front pushing eastward into the central Aleutians. Strong high pressure over the Russian Far East, as well as the smaller one there over the North Slope. And for tonight, again, band of snow right through here continues up through the north central interior. Back up toward the Brooks Range. Could be some gusty winds right up in this area there from the northeast, mostly through the passes, maybe 20 to 30 miles an hour at the most there, but lighter back toward the coast. Light variable winds back toward the west, and just a northerly breeze out here to the western areas, 10 to 20, maybe some gusts 25, 30 miles per hour through the channeled areas of the Alaska Range here, and maybe Bristol Bay as well. But another weak trough coming in, and just about all you can expect from this is some variable cloudiness to move by with maybe a few flurries, but nothing significant at all. High pressure over the Pribilofs, light winds there, maybe some clearing. This weakening front continues to wash out as it pushes eastward. A little bit of moisture around Atka, but the wind's really dropping off. The next stronger system back there to the west, that'll be pushing eastward tomorrow and tomorrow night. Otherwise, look for that front and more rain. The one low up here kind of weakening out, this other one taking over with increasing winds, rain becoming heavy at times along the southern southeast coast, spreading northward tonight and then back to the west once again. And these two systems may combine. And as that happens, late tomorrow afternoon, specifically tomorrow night, a pretty good chance of snow coming across south central Alaska, especially from, say Kenai northward into the Susitna Valley again. But tomorrow looks like some rain showers possible over the Kenai Peninsula, and then rain starting around Cordova there with a little bit of a break across Prince William Sound. Just some scattered rain or snow showers for the Wrangell Mountains. More snow here through the central Tanana Valley, low pressure up over the Yukon Flats. That'll keep the gradient tight enough to maybe give some gusty winds up there over the eastern Brooks Range areas. But northerlies 10 to 15, maybe 20 knots. But the gradient increasing now along the Alaska Range as that cold air tries to push eastward there and jump the range a little bit and spill into the Susitna Valley. So look for these northwest winds to begin to increase, especially as the front passes through. Iliamna, Kamishak Bay areas should see a significant increase in the winds once the cold air starts pouring through there. Front should cross Kodiak Island, but don't look for a lot of precipitation associated with it. Drying out here along the Alaska Peninsula. Rain continuing there for the southeast coast, but winds starting to come down, become a little more southwesterly as the front pushes in. Another disturbance here, that'll probably move in again mostly to the south as the jet stream shifts a little bit farther to the south. Still southwesterly, but it'll make landfall farther to the south, more over the Queen Charlotte Islands. Things start to become a little more westerly here. Temperatures will come down, but it won't get real cold. Just the freezing levels will drop and snow levels will come down. So at sea level, we probably won't notice any change at all temperature-wise, but it definitely goes over to more showers here late Monday night and early Tuesday with possible rain or snow showers in the north as the snow levels drop, scattering out a little bit. Can't make it completely dry over the southern areas. A couple of troughs still off the coast will bring more precipitation in. Now it looks like overnight Sunday and into early Tuesday, the cold air will finally be in over south central Alaska, and so look for the snow to end from west to east slowly. Questionable how much will get very far to the south, but definitely possible snow into the Copper River Basin, diminishing here over the eastern interior. Lots of clear skies, sunshine here from Bristol Bay and into Kodiak Island, northward to the Arctic coast, so temperatures will be on the chilly side and definitely below the seasonal normals. That front elongating eastward here, bringing rain into the Alaska Peninsula, but not a whole lot of wind associated with it. The gradient will be mostly up over the Bering Sea here with easterlies, east-northeasterlies, getting a little brisk, possibly up to 25 or 30 knots there for the Pribilofs. Then drops off over the eastern Aleutians, more rain, a little bit increase in the wind with the next front pushing in to the far western Aleutians. Temperatures this afternoon, 45 to 50 here across just about all of the southeast coast, as well as the North Gulf Coast here with more sunshine. Temperatures 45 to 50 over south central Alaska. More clouds keeping it down around 40 there at Cordova. And 39 Gulkana, not a bad day there. Kodiak, lower 40s. Kodiak Island, Bristol Bay, temperatures ranging from 35 at Koliganek to 41 at King Salmon. And 30s here, again the snow both at Nenana and Fairbanks, but cutting off around North Pole, Eielson area. 37 over at Delta, 28 at McGrath with periods of light snow there. Definitely see the colder air back to the west with temperatures in the lower teens out along the coast. Up to the north, I've got 22 at Bettles, but -6 at Anatuvik, 14 Arctic Village, 19 over at Fort Yukon. Again, well below zero up here along the Arctic coast in the afternoon. These are all 4 p.m. readings, -10 there at New Ixit, 15 below over at Dead Horse, and -7 at Kaktovik. Barrow -8. Back up towards zero there, Point Hope and Cape Lisburne, 7 degrees Kotzebue, 0 at Deering, 3 Selawik, and 28, as I mentioned, at McGrath. 12, Unalakleet, Nome, they were up to 15. Shishmaref, on the other hand, barely getting above zero. 9 degrees at Safunga, 13 St. Mary's. and a 22 there at Bethel, with 21 at Cape Newenham. Otherwise 34 at Pilot Point, a little chillier there in the colder air and clouds, fog, a little flurry condition at Cold Bay at 32. Same at Dutch Harbor, 23 at St. Paul, mid-30s here out over the Aleutians. Lows tonight, 30s here over the southeast coast, with 20s and 30s over the southeast interior, but much colder up into the Tanana Valley, dropping into the teens. 0-degree isotherm down to, say, St. Mary's, and then back northeast to just south of Bettles there, and to just also south of Arctic Village. Temperatures dropping down toward 30 below again across the North Slope area and even around Barrow once again. And then for the highs tomorrow, upper 20s for the Pribilofs, lower teens for St. Lawrence Island. Below zero generally again the North Slope, Northwest Interior, and all of the Arctic coast, with 30s to lower 40s here over south central Alaska, about the same as you saw today in the Tanana Valley. Over to the eastern interior, Eagle popping up to 42, mostly in the 40s for the Panhandle, near 40 for the Aleutians. Flying weather, areas IFR, increasing moisture showing up here over south central Alaska, mostly over the Chugach Mountains, Talkeetnas, and those areas, and along and just west of the Alaska Range there, but improving to VFR just short ways further to the west. Isolated areas of IFR along the Arctic coast, otherwise some VFR and marginal conditions there, and more IFR out over along and south of the Aleutians, with pretty variable conditions here, mostly west of the Pribilofs. Looks pretty good VFR-wise here along much of the coast. For Anaktuvik, VFR to the south, otherwise marginal conditions, lowest on the northern entrances. Same thing for Adigan. And for the western Alaska ranges, rainy, marginal VFR with IFR on the western approaches for both Lake Clark and Merrill. Now I'll take a look at rainy, same forecast, lowest conditions, western approach, probably IFR there, and marginal conditions to VFR on the east side. Windy, possible IFR in the northern approach, and that same forecast also for Isabel. And Tanita, marginal to IFR at times, and then Mentasta, which seems to be left out again, about the same as the other one there, Chilk, or the Mentasta, IFR in the northern approach, VFR to the south. Now jumping over to Portage, marginal becoming IFR, and Chilkoot and White, IFR. For the freezing levels here, good push of warm air, that southerly jet, south winds, 6,000 feet or better coming into the southern Panhandle. So quite a thermal gradient developing here along the southeast coast. Otherwise at the surface tomorrow morning, near or south of the coastline, especially the Alaska Peninsula. And then more warmer air surging northward, but this one mostly pushing more eastward than northward out there. So icing threats will be near and to the south of the western Aleutians here, eventually sliding eastward. That old front bringing some threats up into the Bering Sea, just about, well, fairways west of the islands there, and maybe below 9,000 feet, some areas of light rime icing possible here through the interior, back into south central Alaska, up along the coast. And then that deeper moisture layer producing an icing layer maybe from 5 to 20,000 feet at times in areas there along the Panhandle. Big upper trough now pushing eastward. That should drive the cold air to most areas of south central Alaska tomorrow evening or overnight tomorrow night, and that'll last into Wednesday and then dry out with the colder temperatures, clear skies back to the west, still that strong southerly jet into the Panhandle, but that whole pattern shifting eastward, and eventually it'll be a little bit farther to the south, so that'll allow rain to change to showers on Tuesday there. And looking at 9,000 feet, there we go. Northwest, 25 to 30 knots here coming across Bristol Bay and Kodiak Island tomorrow. Very strong winds showing up at this level over the Panhandle, up to 60 knots. And 3,000 feet, much the same pattern. Northwesterlies out here, south-southeasterlies up to 50 over the Panhandle. And with that could be some severe turbulence showing up, maybe along the coast of Prince of Wales Island, otherwise moderate chop lifting northward throughout the day. Smoother conditions back out to the west. After the break, I'll be back with the marine forecasts.
One of them beautiful days.
Most times you hear these seagulls all the time, you know. But there was none that day.
It was spooky quiet.
I looked down and there was a box of 22 shells, and I said, wow. I reached down and picked those up, and I said, man, this is going to be my lucky day.
We were just about ready to make the set when we felt this tapping vibration in the bottom of the skiff.
You know, we heard this rolling rumble.
We didn't know what it was, because it was severe.
And it started rolling. And it was just like that first.
You got to remember, this is during the Cold War. My immediate thoughts were they nuked Anchorage.
It was just awesome.
All hell broke loose and the ground started rocking and rolling. And my little buddy told me, "Earthquake, run."
So we started running.
The earth was opening up right across the street, right in front of me, and black water was shooting up in the air about, I would say, 15 to 30 feet.
The tops of the foam poles snapping off.
The trees were whipping back and forth.
And it just kept right on shaking. And as it got further along, it was worse.
As we stood there on the corner, the first of the Standard Oil tanks began to explode.
Hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of gallons of fuel that were burning.
And it burned and burned and burned. It was light as day that night, except for the black soot that was falling.
March 27, 1964. Alaska had experienced the most powerful earthquake ever recorded in North America. The magnitude 9.2 quake left Anchorage and other communities devastated. And although there would be aftershocks for weeks, for most of Alaska, the worst was over. But for many coastal communities, the horror was only beginning. The mega-scale earthquake sent multiple killer tsunamis onto Alaska's shores. Most fatalities occurred in Seward, Valdez, and Kodiak.
The channel completely emptied out. You could actually see the bottom of the channel.
And we should have realized, I guess, that the water was going to come in rapidly, but we were fairly ignorant of tsunamis.
No cresting wave. It was just this huge surge that came up and took what boats were left in the harbor and basically rolled them around town.
So it come way up in and washed all of the town out down below, just everything.
Turned and started running, and it happened about as fast as I just told you.
When the water went back out, it went down through the channel, just whoosh.
It may have been like 20 or 30 knots of current going through that channel. It's incredible.
Of man in a boat with no oars or nothing. He was just sitting there, probably just paralyzed, you know. And he was going around and around.
Over 30 people died on Kodiak Island. It's relatively sparsely populated. It happened at a time of day when most people were away from the harbor and the businesses downtown. They were at home already. And if it had happened earlier, the loss of life would have been a lot higher.
Kodiak's devastation was caused by the main tsunami wave that was triggered out in the Gulf of Alaska. But Seward experienced a phenomenon called local tsunamis, which were generated by landslides in nearby Resurrection Bay. These waves were far more dangerous than the main tsunami, which struck later. Bob Eads and his brother were south of town on Lowell Point when the first locally generated wave hit.
The first wave came in way over in that direction. That's when the ocean was boiling with them big boils there, and it went clear over 4th of July at treetop level over there and clear around to the head of the bay, clear out to the airport, and clear into the small boat harbor, and then headed toward Mount Marathon and took the small boat harbor out.
Bob and his brother jumped into their pickup truck and tried to escape.
I couldn't outrun it. That overtook us, and we was under about 15 feet of water. That covers up, and it got awful dark, blacker than the inside of a goat, you know. We thought, well, it's just about the end. And then we seen the daylight come. The water went down and back out.
The brothers miraculously survived, but what no one knew was that the main tsunami from the Gulf was bearing down on Seward.
The water just completely emptied right out of the bay. You couldn't see anything.
Resurrection Bay is approximately 900 feet deep, and what just startled me looking out there was no water, absolutely no water as far as you can see. The bay's 18 miles deep and 2 to 3 miles wide, and I could see no water at all, and I commented to my dad about it, and that should have been our warning sign to turn around and get out of there, but we didn't.
Coming back into the bay was this big swell. I mean, great big swell, and it wasn't a round one like it went out. It was combing at the top.
And somebody screaming, "Get out, get out. Tsunami coming, tidal wave coming. Get out, go to high ground."
It was this barge, and it had a big crane right at the back of it. It was just like a skier, and he was just skiing right going out of town with this big swell. And as I went around the corner and started up the hill, well, the box cars and the railroad tracks or railroad cars hit me right in the back of the wrecker, and I would say probably pushed me up the hill about 20 or 30 feet.
By then, Doug McRae and his family had scrambled onto the roof of their house.
We took a wild ride. But it was like a surf ride. There was power lines that we were worried about getting scraped off the roof. Those tree limbs, and we were spinning and bouncing off trees. And this one, I'm just guessing maybe 10 minutes. And we got wedged in amongst some big trees, big cottonwood trees.
Power had gone off, the sewers were gone, the water was gone. There was absolutely nothing left in the way of utilities.
All the docks had completely disappeared. There's just a few stumps sticking up there. It's really a mess. And basically for us, Seward was gone because our livelihood was gone, our employment was gone, the canneries were gone.
And finally I turned to my mother and said to her, "Well, Mom, there goes your All-America City." And we laughed.
Welcome back. Well, strongest winds will be down over the south coast, 25 to 35 knots, possible gales here along the coast. Lighter winds to the north at about 20. And then for Tuesday, looking more southwesterly, maybe as high as 35 knots, but probably down in the 20 to 25 knot range here, and dropping back, but southerlies, possibly 20 to 25 knots there, Lincoln on Glacier Bay. And looking back to the west here, light wind day again for Prince William Sound tomorrow, as well as much of the North Gulf Coast. But look for those northwest winds to start to come up, 20 to 30 knots here, strongest back toward Kamishak Bay, especially late tomorrow afternoon, but more likely overnight tomorrow night and into early Tuesday. Northerlies possibly picking up to 15 to 20 tomorrow afternoon. And then for Tuesday, look for gales here. Kamishak Bay right out across the Barren. Small craft advisory winds as that low center lifts northward. Those could kick in during the afternoon hours from the west. A little breezier there for Prince William Sound, especially through Passage Canal. Look for those stronger west winds to kick in. Small craft advisories coming down, though, trending down for Kodiak Island, 20 to 30 knots for Cook Inlet. And Bristol Bay, northwest, pretty light tomorrow. Small craft advisories, though, Sitkinak to possibly as far west as Chignik. And then light west winds here on the Pacific side of the peninsula, light and variable on the north side to almost dead calm. Then for Tuesday, 20 to 30 knot winds picking up here, possibly minimum gales there on the Pacific side of the peninsula. Northwest 15, 20 knot winds from the northeast for Bristol Bay. And out in the Aleutians, pretty light winds here for the Fox Islands, becoming southeast, increasing to 10 to 20 knots in the afternoon. Small craft advisories here pushing into the central Aleutians, gales back to the west, 30 to 35 knot winds there from the east. And that'll hold probably through Tuesday, 30 to 35 knots, becoming a little more southeasterly through this region, and then lighter winds, 15 to 20 for the central Aleutians, and kind of a variable wind pattern here, anywhere from 10 to 25 knots to the Fox Islands. And looking at the southwest coast for tomorrow, looking pretty light in the winds, northeasterlies, 10 to 15 knots. Could be some higher gusts here. Nunivak Island down to Cape Newenham. Otherwise, the Pribilofs winds becoming east up to 15 knots, light and variable for St. Lawrence Island. And then for the Tuesday outlook, staying pretty light up there across the northern Bering Sea, especially around St. Lawrence Island, beginning to increase here across St. Matthew Island marine area, and 15 to 20 knots, higher gusts in the afternoon there over the southern areas of the southwest coast. Small craft advisories coming back into the Pribilofs, 25 to 30 knots in the afternoon. Up along the Arctic coast, pretty light winds from the northwest, 5 to 10 knots to the central coast from the Bering Strait, and then up to 15 knots there for Kaktovik. And the outlook for Tuesday for this area, not much change out here over the western stretch, but the east side there could see a pretty good increase in the winds out of the west, maybe as high as 30 knots there toward Kaktovik. And for the tonight again, some good solid rain now going on over the southern panhandle, continue to spread northward and back to the west a little bit. The first low starting to weaken, the next one coming up right behind it. And this is the one that could bring the gale force winds to the southern coast. Meanwhile, this front slipping eastward a little bit, increasing the chances of moisture again over south central Alaska, especially up the valleys, but mainly back along the Alaska Range. No change out here to the west, just a gradual diminishing of winds. And then for tomorrow, the front moves inland, so rain continuing the entire day for the panhandle. This front looks like it'll finally make its move eastward tomorrow night, and then the cold air with decreasing snow, clear and cold back to the west, more rain into the eastern Aleutians. Have a great evening. Thanks for joining.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.